Okay, I'm going to run through the cataloging process and the process for exporting, preparing items and exporting them to LTI for authority control, and re-importing them back and importing them into Koha. And this isn't really scripted according to the written documentation. It should follow it pretty closely. It's going to be kind of a supplement to the written documentation. That might be helpful for somebody to watch to see how it's done. How this it'll make a slide of everything I do. So here I am in a connection client. I have a batch in a local save file of completed uh, records that I've produced, either copy records or most of these are original, I think. But um, all of them, if you'll notice over here in this held column, they have been added. The holdings have been added to OCLC. So that's a step in the process, but that'll be covered in uh, another set of documentation actually. So I start out here. I'm going to select all of the items in my batch by clicking the first one, getting it highlighted, and holding the Shift key down on my keyboard and clicking the last one, and that highlights the whole batch. And then I go to Tools and Options, and I'm going to go to there's 16 tabs across the top here for different things. I think it's 16. Most of them I don't use most of the time, but one of them I use is batch, and I'm going to do bibliographic record exports. We can also generate a label file with this, and you can do that both at the same time, but it can complicate things a little bit. So I'm just going to do the bibliographic record export for now. The other one that you have to be aware of with this is the export tab, and that is where you select the batch that you're going to export, or the file that you're going to export the items to. I have one called Tim's Exports. It's an OSLS connection is the file path directory, and that's where I send these records to as an intermediate step before I prepare them to send to LTI. That usually stays the same once you select it, so you don't really have to check that every time usually, but it doesn't hurt to check it. So those are the two things you need to pay attention to do this part of the process, batch and export. And I have bibliographic record export clicked here. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Takes a second and it clears that dialog box out. And then I have a button up here at the top. It's a little E in a box with a green arrow pointing to the right. That's the export button. And if you'll notice, I dragged this over a bit so you could see this column. There's an export column here, and you'll see that all the values are blank in there. And once I click export, it's going to run and put an R in all those. That means that they're ready to be exported. And then you go up here to the very top to the menu items, select batch, go to process batch. You get another dialog box, and here I want to this is the file that I'm working with right now, tms.bib, and so I want to check that box. There's red check marks by both what they call the default file and then the one that you're using. I usually don't use the default file, but this little white box has to be checked on the file that you want to export. And then down here under process in this box, I want to click exports. There again, you can do label printing at the same time, but I'm just going to do exports in this slideshow, in this video. So I'm ready, and I click OK, and another little dialog box comes up. It runs shows you the progress. It's working on the records here, and then that disappears. It will bring up a batch export report, and this will list all the items that you had in your file. And if there were any errors or problems with doing this part of the process, you'll get some error messages here. Usually it works pretty well. You can print this out to hold on to it just by doing File, Print up here. I don't really feel the need of having a printed copy right now, so I'm not going to do it. So I'm just going to close that. Now what I want to do, I should have generated that Tim's exports file that I mentioned. So I'm going to go to the File Manager, and the path for that was O SLS connection. And these are all listed alphabetically right now. I can scroll down here, and there it is, timsexports.dat. If you don't want to scroll down through all the files to look alphabetically, you can click on Date Modified, and clicking on this toggling will change the sort from oldest first down to newest, or if you click it again, you'll get the newest file at the top. So there's since I just did that one, that's the one that'll show up at the top, and I can just click it. That's a little bit easier to find it that way. I want to click on that to highlight it in blue, and then go up here in the upper left-hand corner and tell it to rename the file. We have to rename the files in a particular format to submit them to LTI for authority processing. And that's uppercase IOWAT, and the date in a 2-digit year, which is, this is 2018, so I'm going to put 18. Year, month, 05 because it's May, and 22 for the day. The date is today is the 22nd. And then my initials, TS. If there's more than one person that processes files, this just tells who actually processed the file. That probably won't be happening that often, but it's still part of the naming convention. So, and then I changed the file extension from DAT to IN. LTI wants that format. So I've done that. I push enter, and it tells me that that file name extension is unfamiliar. It might not be workable. And are you sure you want to change it? And yes, you do. Just tell it yes. Okay, so now we have our file named in the format that LTI wants it. I'm going to open a window of Chrome, because we can do this in Chrome, the browser, and I'm going to go to authorityexpress.com. The login ID, the username is IOWAT, all in uppercase, and the word BETWEE. It's like between without the N on the end, all in uppercase. This is set up so that it remembers me from the time before, so I didn't have to type those in. So I'm going to log in. You see this user files page, and here are all the previous jobs we've submitted and stay in the queue. You could delete some of these. I don't know. I usually just leave them. They eventually kind of drop off there. We're going to go under here at user where it says user files, and I'm going to upload a file. And it gives me a little button to choose the file. And it brings up the file manager. So my file is in O SLS connection. And there again, I've sorted them so that the newest file is on top. It's IOWAT 180522ts.in. That's the one I just renamed from the Tim's exports. The one that was called Tim's exports. I renamed it to this. So I'm going to click here and click open down at the bottom. It lists it here, and so I can see if that's the one I want. It is. So I click submit file. And then it gives me another chance to say, is this the one that you wanted to do? And I do. So I click confirm. Now you'll see these list of jobs again, and this one will say that it's pending. This only takes a very few minutes, or maybe not even a minute usually. You can click on it and see if there's anything there. It just shows up like that. So there it is. Now it says complete. So when I click on the blue link there, I'm going to show that again. Under job name, here's my job file that I submitted, and it says complete. So when I click on the link there, it shows me the files that it generated, the output files. ACF and ULH are report files. You can open them up in Word, and it will give you a statistical report on what you just submitted and how many of each kind it generated and any error messages. LCN, LCS, and OUT are the actual files that are going to be imported into Koha. LCM stands for Library of Congress Medical Subject Headings. We don't really use those anymore. LCN is name authorities, LCS is subject authorities, and the OUT file is your bibliographic records. So in order to download those back down to our local file manager so that we can work with them, I double click there and then say save link as. I'm going to put these in. I have these in a kind of a long file structure right now, and that can be changed. It's in OCLC stuff, cataloging exports. I don't want that there right now. Where's my... Okay, I want to go to in OCLC stuff, cataloging exports, out 2018, and I'm going to create a new folder called 0522 for May 22nd. I'm going to put these new files into this folder. So you see there's the my file name .lcn. It's an LCN file. You have to change this to all files. That's just something they told us to do at LTI a long time ago. Not sure why. That was the LCN. I'm going to save the LCS. Same thing. Change this to all files. And I'm going to save the out. Same thing. I'm going to save the ACF and the ULH as well. Okay, and that's all of the ones that I needed to download. So I'm going to go back up here to where it says jobs, and here's my logout link. So I'm going to log out there, and we're done with LTI. So now I have my files in this in OCLC stuff, cataloging exports, out 2018 0522. You see there's the 5 files, ACF and ULH, report files, LCN, LCS, and out. Those are the ones I'm going to import into Koha. So I go back, open up Koha, and here's the home page. There's 2 ways to get to these menus. One is across here, and you can use more, and there are menu choices down here, or there are just the menu buttons on the home page. So what I want to do is go to Tools, It wants me to log in again. I guess I timed out. Okay. Here, when you're not on the home page, that's when it's easy to go to More and then Tools. And you see the choices down here. I'm going to go back to the home page. Click on Tools. And I want to go down to Stage Mark Records for Import. I have the LTI files in my local file manager on my computer, on my network now, and I want to bring them into Koha to import them. So I click on Stage Mark Records for Import. Here's a Browse button to find the files. Click on that. The file manager opens up. I go to my... Okay. I'm going to start with the authority files, so I'm going to click on LCN, double click on it. See that it loaded it up here. That's the one I want to do, so I click Upload File. Gives you a little progress bar. These are this is the authority, one of the authority files, so I have to change this to authority. I don't really have a record matching process for authority files, so I'm just going to tell it not to look for any. And then I click Stage for Import. Again, there's a progress bar. It gets done. Pops up with a little statistical report about how many authority records I loaded. These are name authorities, and looks like there's 3 of them. It'll give error messages if some of them didn't load for some reason. And there's 0 that weren't staged. So then you can click on Managed Stage Records. You shouldn't need to change any of these because it already knows they're authority records. And you'll see a list of them. Here are the names that it brought in. These are new names. If it recognized ones that we had submitted that were new to us, so they're going to be imported into the authority Koha authorities. So now all you have to do is import dispatch into the catalog. And there you see them, the same list. Now you'll see a record number over here at the right. That means they've been imported, been assigned a record number. If you click on that, it will open up the authority file, and you can look at it. Look at the different fields. Normally we don't look at these too much, but you can if you want. If you ever want to, you can look at them that way. Okay, now I'm going to go back and do the same process over for the subject files. Again, I want to browse. This is LCS. And I'm going to tell it to upload the file. The default is always bibliographic, so I have to change this to authority again. If you load authority files with the bibliographic choice there, you'll get some very funny looking things, and you'll probably realize something is wrong. So you can undo it and do it over. I'm going to stage for import now. And there were 5 new subject headings. Again, no errors. I'm going to manage the staged records. And there they are. Tell it, go up here to import dispatch into the catalog. And there it's done. Again, you can click over here and look at these. If you want to. And finally, I have my bib records. So I'm going to go back to stage mark records for import. Those are out. That's correct. So I click upload file. Now I want bibliographic this time because that's what they are. We have a record matching procedure. So I go to record matching rule. And I tell it match on OCLC 001 or 035. That's the OCLC number. And I'm just going to tell it to go ahead and add the incoming records anyway, because it'll identify, if it does happen to have duplicates, it'll identify them and we can undo them. We always want to add items. I added 952 fields to all of those records. That has the item data embedded, so it'll import item records as well as the bib records. So I want to tell it to stage for import. You see the job progress bar there. It says it found 21 records. 0 were not staged, 21 records staged. Now it says that I have a duplicate, one match in catalog per matching rule OCLC. I don't know what that is, but I apparently loaded one that we already had in there, and we'll see what that is. And had 34 item records among those 21. Some of them were serials with more than one item record. So I click on Manage Staged Records. And okay, here's the one that matches this Ready Set Retire title. So we'll figure out what the deal is with that. Otherwise it looks okay, so I click on Import Patch. You see the record number here is blank, but when it finishes completed import of records, it ignored 2 of them because of the duplicate. Well, no, I had a duplicate barcode too, so that's another problem that I'll have to uncover and figure out what happened. Now you could see these are the same thing. The clicking on the record number will bring up the record. And there is a process we do to get to go through all these to check them. In this case, you especially have to check because I have these errors here. But this is basically the end of the import process. The next thing is to get all of the physical items and the records ready to send to the LRT for labeling. And so that'll be a separate video. But for now, we've completed the importing process into Koha. And that's that.